You off in Korea or something?
Is CJ off in Korea? Oh, because Mike is in Japan. No, I think CJ is traveling for work. CJ travels has to travel a lot for work. So I don't know. It might be a little bit different once he moves to DC, whether he'll have to do as much traveling because he'll always be there. I don't know if he's in DC this week or if he's in some other state, but he's not here, which shows his dedication to the cause.
That's right. How are you doing as producer these days? Are you feel up to the task?
Yeah, I don't. There's a couple of little tricks he does with the video before he posts it that I do not do, but I do fix the audio a little bit. Sometimes I cut out the filter in, sometimes I don't. So if I end up not cutting, you know what? I'll cut out the filter in. So you're never going to hear this on the filter in anyway.
Do you know what on StreamYard there's a little box you can check before you sign on that says like touch up my video? Do you know what that does?
Yeah, it does the same thing that a what's it called will do. A MacBook will do. It sort of smooths out differences in your I could probably do it while I'm talking here. Hold on. Let me see if I can. Yeah. So you want me to touch up my appearance while we're talking?
Let's touch it up, baby.
Okay. So do you see? You kind of look.
I don't see anything now.
Really? You kind of look like, I'm just going to say girls do this on Instagram because it's mostly like, well, it's mostly like when I'm looking at my wife's friends or my or my 24-year-old sister, and I'm like, wait a minute, your skin doesn't look that good. But like, there's this sort of like washout quality to it where it fixes the skin, but it also evens it out in a way that is not realistic. This is sort of what it does. So.
Well, I'm hoping your sister doesn't watch this podcast, but I'm guessing
I'm willing to bet she does not. Before we start, do you want We Were Wrong or do you want We Were Right? I kind of like We Were Right because I like the vibe of it, but it's up to you.
Well, after a win, I feel like we can't do We Were Wrong. Although I guess that maybe that's us being wrongest of all. So
yeah, I'm going to do We Were Right. I'll do.
I think it's time for We Were Right.
Okay.
Plenty of opportunity for We Were Wrong in the next 2 months.
Absolutely. The Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast is presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Sign up for DraftKings Sportsbook by using promo code RTRS. And brought to you by MortgageCS. Become a MortgageCS Ricky VIP by going to mortgagecs.com/Ricky. LL Pavorsky Jewelers, where Rights to Ricky Sanchez listeners go and get engaged. Body Bio. Get 20% off any Body Bio order with promo code Norman at bodybio.com. That is Norman, Norman. And Kinetic Skateboarding, get 9.1% off your first order with promo code Dave Silver. On the show today, the Sixers, behind a outrageous performance from Quentin Grimes, win a game. How did it feel to win the first game in 10 games? I don't know. We'll get to that. AU and I will get to it. I actually, for the first time, had slightly mixed feelings knowing that they won that game. So there's that. There is the report from Shams that Joel Embiid went right to Josh Harris to tell him that his knee was injured because nobody else in the organization had mentioned it before. Podcast P quits his podcast to focus on the Sixers. Great timing. And we will update you on the Sixers lottery situation, playoff situation, all of that stuff as well. Before we get going, Kinetic Skateboarding. Hey, look, I am wearing a Kinetic hoodie right now. It's the, what do you call this guy? The death guy.
The Grim Reaper?
The Grim Reaper. The Grim Reaper Kinetic hoodie. I have two of these, actually. I have the tan and black. I have three. I have two of these. I have the tan and black one, the black and red one. I also have the Kinetic one that almost looks like it's Packers colors, has like the Kelly green, but it has the gold Kinetic logo. I'm a hoodie guy, and Kinetic is excellent if you're a hoodie guy, but Kinetic's also excellent if you're a sneaker guy. Kinetic's excellent if you're a snowboard guy, a skateboard guy, or I'm saying guy. I mean that for everybody. I just happen to be hoodie guy. In any case, whether it's winter stuff or whether you're getting ready for spring, weather's getting a little bit nicer, Kinetic Skateboarding is where you want to shop for all of that stuff. And the sneakers, you're not going to see most of them anywhere else. New Balance, Vans, Converse, Nike, stuff that you're not going to see anywhere else. Go to kineticskateboarding.com, and if it's your first order, use code Dave Silver for 9.1% off of it. Without any further ado, Amos and the Chef.
y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We was right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We were right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. Say the name.
Welcome to the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast. I'm Spike Eskin, and sitting in for one Michael Levin, that is everyone's favorite, AU. Oh, yeah.
I can get used to this.
Oh, must feel good after a win with this one.
That's right. Didn't know if I get to feel it again this year, yeah.
Oh, yeah. There it is. Andrew Underberger sitting in for Mike, who is still in Japan. Mike will return. Right. I think his first pod back is March 12th, I think. March 10th, March 12th, something like that. Sixers go in and shockingly beat the Golden State Warriors. We'll get to the Embiid stuff second. We will talk about the game first. This was a game. So I took my wife, my wife got a new job as we are moving back to the Delaware Valley. And
congratulations, Val.
Yeah, and I took her out to celebrate her job. And so I didn't watch the game until this morning, so I knew what happened when I watched the game. But I have to say, with about 10 minutes left in the third quarter, it is very funny to check in and look at the box score. Like, you see the Sixers winning, right? And you have this idea of what the box score is going to look like. And you're like, so Quentin Grimes is going off while Tyrese Maxey hasn't scored yet? Okay, all right. And Paul George has made one basket. So, we just have to start off, but it is fun to see a player that has, I don't know if Quentin Grimes has actually gone off against the Sixers. I feel like spiritually he is a guy who would have when he was with the Knicks, that Deuce McBride energy. It is really exciting and fun to watch a guy have a game like that who you don't expect to have a game like that. And it wasn't just that he was hot shooting. He was pretty awesome everywhere. And it, to my eye, sort of felt like he was shot out of a cannon, at least from an energy perspective too. So just an awesome all-around game to watch. Whether you're cheering for losses or not cheering for losses, it was an awesome all-around game to watch for Quentin Grimes.
Well, it's funny, Spike, that you should use the word cannon, because in my opinion, this was revenge for the Isaiah Cannon game. This was absolutely, doing the kind of quantum leap thing where we set right what once went wrong. Yeah. And we should have won that game 9 years ago, I guess 9 years ago.
The 4-point
against
play.
The Warriors. Yeah, the Isaiah Cannon 4-point play game. Lost that. Harrison Barnes in the corner. I think there was an uncalled foul somewhere along the line that Sixers Adam is still mad about. But we won this time. We did do that. Quentin Grimes, 44 points. Somehow only 2 of 8 from the free throw line was very strange.
Tried to lose it at the end, at the line, by the way. Tried to lose it at the end.
This was a great win for a couple of reasons. One, I think the biggest one is just putting right that Golden State hole that we've had in our hearts for the last decade. But the biggest one for me is that if you are the sort of person that is rooting for losses, which I think by now is pretty much everybody. I don't think there's anybody. I mean, me and Jason are still holding on a little bit of that 10-seed energy. Some of the guys on Twitter, maybe a little bit, but for the most part, we're basically hoping for losses at this point. This is the kind of win that doesn't necessarily lead to other wins, in my opinion. Like going, I think we were 19 of 33 from 3.
Yes.
And Isaiah,
it wasn't them figuring it out. Is your point?
No.
Yeah.
Quentin Grimes going for 44. The Warriors just missing a bunch of open threes. This was that kind of game that Mike and I always get angry about. The they just made shots game. We were the team that just made shots this game. So I don't think you necessarily need to worry about the Sixers ripping off 6 straight after this one or anything like that.
Yeah, that's a good point, that it isn't a win that leads to other wins. In fact, it actually seems quite the opposite. It seems like Maxey went through this really frustrating point for him at the beginning of the season where, well, we don't need to relitigate it, but had a frustrating first month and a half, had a really, really solid 6 weeks after that. And at this point, he I'm going to channel a little bit of Mike's energy. Like if Nick Nurse has to teach him how to shoot with fewer fingers because he has so many fingers that are injured, like it might not be time for him to play 42 minutes.
3 really doesn't seem like enough. I got to be honest. 3 does not seem like enough fingers to be able to shoot with.
Now when you're shooting, it's really only coming off of 2 or 3 fingers. I sort of get it, like that
the other ones are there for a reason, you know.
Yes,
like
yeah,
it's not like we could just kind of chop off 2 of them and call no harm, no foul. That still seems like an important part of the process to me.
Especially when it's an anecdote that Nurse was working on him with it. Like there's a little. I hate when Mike's like he's playing too many minutes or why is he even playing? Like he's a basketball player. He gets paid to play basketball. He should play in the games that he's healthy enough to play in, at least at this point. But there's just like a little bit of, so just to come, to wrap up the Maxey thing, it does seem a little bit, he's going out there, but there's a little bit of him that seems to have accepted his fate for this season.
Well, two things about Maxey. One is that if you're going to try to look for positives in this, I think you could say that it's maybe teaching him how to kind of play with he's almost literally playing one-handed. And so he's kind of learning how to pass out of it a little bit better and a little bit quicker. Like, I think 12 assists last night. And a lot of those were real assists, I think. But they are still playing him. Defenses are still playing him like he is Tyrese Maxey. I wonder if they're going to start not doing that if he keeps shooting the way he has. Because at a certain point, like, he is just not really a threat from the perimeter. And he sort of knows that. But I think he's learning how to kind of deal with double teams a little bit better because shooting and scoring aren't really even options for him right now. Do you think they're just going to shut him down at some point? Like,
yes. So the way I think it's going to happen, my guess is that, they shut down Embiid. My guess is Paul George, they would love to get 3 to 5 games of him looking pretty good on tape before they shut him down going into the offseason, if they decide to trade him or something, because there's a very clear delineation between the people who don't think Paul George has the ability to be good anymore, and then the people who do think he has the ability, he's just not trying, which is not better. I would argue slightly better, but worse in other ways. I am of that opinion that he can play. So I think we'll get Paul George shut down within a week to 10 days after they can get a few of those. Now, the Knicks game was one of those. This one was not one of those. I thought he looked pretty terrible in this game.
Well, I thought he had some nice moments, especially on defense, and he kind of gutted his way to the 17 points. We did kind of need him down the stretch. But yeah, this wasn't like necessarily one for the highlight reel. But the thing with Tyrese Maxey at this point is that I see a lot
for Maxey. I think what we're going to get is not a shutdown, but I think we will get the games where he's questionable to err on the side of not play rather than play. And my guess would be the last 10 days of the season, he probably doesn't play at all when everyone's allowed to tank.
Because at this point, playing him in the state that he's in is actually kind of a great stealthy tanking strategy. Like he's really, really compromised right now. And I don't know what his shooting numbers are like over the last 3 games, but they must be in like the 20s or low 30s at the best. Like he is not really helping them win that much at this point, but he's kind of getting them through these games because he's still an offensive hub. I feel like if they just kind of keep playing him at this state, they're going to lose a lot of games as a result anyway. It might end up being the best of both worlds.
Well, they lose a lot of games no matter who is playing. I still think that Maxey in a limited capacity is better than the combination of Jared Butler and Jeff Dalton, or whatever. Like Lonnie Walker, boy, that guy is.
Don't get me started on Lonnie Walker.
Talk about just a guy that like he's actually below just a guy. Like he is the great Spurs missed on a pick there. That guy is
well, except for when he fucking plays the Sixers, in which case he is Tony Parker with range.
Yeah.
No, I get that guy the fuck out of here. We are done with Lonnie Walker the fourth.
Yeah.
We already have won the fourth. We don't need a second one.
Yeah. So like overall, I thought it was a. So were you? So where are you? Are you in the place where spiritually you're cheering for wins, but realistically losses is better? Is that kind of your spot right now?
Yeah, I mean, this was actually probably the last 2 games, the Knicks game and this one, were the first 2 games this season where like I was like, if they lose this game, I'll probably be okay with it. I wasn't kind of living and dying by every missed basket and stupid turnover and blowing fast break and all that. I still, I kind of wanted them to win just because it's been a month basically. They had one win total in the month of February. I would hope to get like at least 2 this month, but I definitely when the Warriors looked like they were going to kind of wrest control back of the game. I wasn't angry about that. I was like, okay, maybe this is for the best after all. But I will say, I do hope that somewhere in Japan, Mike could kind of feel what was going on. Like this is like the only thing that's really motivating wins for me at this point is spite for Mike and Gon specifically. And I saw Gon's freaking out about it a little bit on social media. And I hope Mike, having his sashimi, like the $100 omakase or whatever, like felt like that little twinge in the stomach, thought it was the wasabi at first. And then he was like, no, this is something deeper. Something went right with the Sixers. They won a game probably with Embiid out for the season and Tyrese Maxey shooting 2 of 14. Fuck that. And I hope it ruined his night like a little bit. He's got plenty of other nights to make up for it. I'm sure he's still going to have a very nice trip, but I hope he had a one semi-ruined night as a result of the Sixers win.
Dude, I support spite. Oh,
really? I'm shocked to hear you say that.
Yeah. I'm a big spite guy. The Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast is brought to you by MortgageCS. So here are the 2 ways you become a MortgageCS Ricky VIP. Go to mortgagecs.com/Ricky or call or text Ben, their CEO, at any time. And I'll get to this in a second. I mean, at any time, he's available for you. 267-391-7425. Up until this point, I had really taken the people who have used MortgageCS that are Ricky listeners, I'd taken them at their word for it, right? I know Alec and Ben really well at this point. The 2 main guys, I'd mentioned Ben there, the CEO, the 2 founders of MortgageCS. I have faith in them as people. I understand what they're trying to do. It makes sense to me. We've only gotten good feedback, so I believed all of it. But I'm currently working with MortgageCS to buy a house in South Jersey. And everything that everybody has said is right and like tenfold. And I would think it's just because it's me and like they're giving me special service or whatever. If it hadn't been so similar to everything that everybody said, even the realtors that I'm dealing with at this point in for the house in South Jersey had said something to me about how much different the MortgageCS is than almost every other lender they've ever worked with. I have to say, not only are they on it and they respond like almost immediately. I'm a big, hey, I reach out to you. This is important. Get back to me. They're always back, whether it's Ben or Alec or whoever it is on their team. But just the way that everything is presented, everything is really clear. The emails, and this is like a big thing to me. Maybe it's not a big thing to you. When I dealt with other mortgage brokers, you get an email back. It would be 1-word responses. Sometimes there's not a period, like that sort of, you know what I'm saying? Like hassled responding on my iPhone, getting to the next thing. But that's not how anybody at MortgageCS works. You ask them a question and everything is really thoughtful and everything is followed up by, hey, if you need me to give you more information on this, give me a call or let me know if that isn't clear to you. And that is not how the other mortgage brokers I've ever dealt with have ever worked. And it's outrageous. And there have been several times that I didn't understand this thing or that thing. And I give Ben a call on my way home at 7:30 at night. Boom, he's there. In the morning, boom, he's there. Or it's Alec or whoever it is. Everybody on their team has been absolutely awesome. They helped me out, got a rate that I'm very happy with. But the thing that I'm happy with the rate, but the thing that I'm more happy with is how they've been dealing with this entire time. Ben just checked in with me on Friday just to make sure everything was going okay. Nothing had happened, just to make sure to let me know that they're there. They've mentioned to me that there were a few times in the last month where a Ricky listener came to them and it was too late to help. It was after their offer was accepted. So I'm already going to tell you, even if you think it might be too late, reach out to MortgageCS. But I think the key here is to start with MortgageCS. Once your bid gets accepted, there's all kinds of other things going on there that can make it hard for you to change your lender. So I would say start with MortgageCS. They're the ones that are going to put you in the best position to get the house in the first place. Another thing, I know you're thinking rates are high. It might be a pretty good time to refinance, especially if you bought a home in the last year or two. If your rate starts with a 7, they can probably help you out on getting a better rate. So I cannot endorse MortgageCS enough. Call or text Ben anytime, 267-391-7425, or go to mortgagecs.com/Ricky. This advertisement is not a commitment to lend or extend credit. MortgageCS is an equal housing opportunity mortgage broker. All loans are subject to credit approval. Certain restrictions may apply. Company NMLS 1464766. Visit mortgagecs.com/Ricky for more information. Also on the game, it really did. It's amazing how your perspective on the game changes when, depending on how you're rooting, like the same thing. If I had been wholeheartedly rooting for the Sixers to win the game, that period in the middle of the third, when the Warriors started storming back, or even in the fourth where it was tied, I would have been sure, I would have bet $1 billion that the Sixers would lose the game. But because I know it's better for the Sixers to lose the game, I did not have that same sure feeling. And I can't tell if, now I didn't have the same sure feeling and they actually won the game. I can't tell if I'm right or if I'm just not as good as I think I am at predicting whether they'll win in the middle of the game or not.
Well, I feel like we kind of got it both ways between the Knicks game and this game, right? Like the last game was like, oh, we have all the momentum in the world. We're coming back. We're storming back in the fourth quarter. We took the lead out of nowhere. Now it's a 2-possession game. And then they fucked it up and they lost in the final 2.5 minutes. That felt very Sixers-y of this season. This one feels less so. I think we were overdue for one of these games. We've had plenty of the other kind in recent vintage. So I feel like it's okay that we got this one, even though I sort of felt the same way you did, where it was like, well, why aren't I more sure that the Sixers are going to lose this game?
Right.
And
right.
it's because they were going to screw us for it. Yeah.
Yep. Anything else on the team? I thought, Podcast P was forgettable, but did hit a couple of big shots in the fourth, I guess. And he's he is confounding because he will make really good court vision type passes and really bad, what did you see there? The other guy was standing right in front of you passes. Everybody else, Drummond had a couple of moments, I guess, but also had a couple of moments where the Warriors got 2 or 3 consecutive offensive rebounds as he stood there and watched. There wasn't too much else. Was there anything else in the game that you thought was notable?
No, it's staggering to me how bad this team is on defense. Like, I feel like they should be better, and they got off to a good start, but you really notice how important causing turnovers is to their defense, because when they can't do it, it's just almost always a bad possession. They can play solid defense for like 18 to 20 seconds, but then that last 4 seconds, it's like they're carrying something so heavy that they just can't carry it any longer, and then they'll let up a backdoor cut or an offensive rebound or something. And like the Warriors had a bad shooting night. They were down Jimmy Butler. They still scored 119 points somehow. Like it's really kind of mind blowing to me that they're still quite as bad on that end of the court as they are. And that it took Quentin Grimes scoring 44 points and Gershon Yabusele hitting 5 of 7 from deep for them to even have a chance to win. Like that's another thing. It's like you can't win more than like one game a week playing this way. And that's why I'm not necessarily worried about the tanking part of it. And the other thing is, like Jason was saying this on Blue Sky, I think, like, I know people are going to freak out about them winning a game, especially because the Raptors had that terrible loss just the night before that they really should have won. They weren't going to lose 35 games in a row.
Yeah, they're not going to lose every game. Yeah.
They got to win a few. And this was one of them. If they're going to win a few games, I enjoyed it being like a Saturday night game at home against fucking Draymond Green, who's my least favorite player of all time. It's okay. Like, it's fine. We'll be all right.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe we won't be, but it's not going to be because of this game.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. Grimes was awesome. It was fun to watch from him. He's a player. Now, I think he's been easy to notice since the day he got here. That seems like a pretty good little player that would be good to have on the Sixers. That game, this game notwithstanding, but the entire time he's looked good. But fun game from him, definitely. When everything's going, it's fun.
Yeah. That trade was actually like maybe like secretly the second or third best trade that Daryl Morey has ever made with the Sixers, especially because they got that pick back for it. That's almost certainly going to be good and convey. And I'm not missing Caleb Martin terribly much. Like I think in like this shitstorm of a season, this was like the kind of like the eye of it, I guess. Like the one calm part of it is them kind of winning this one trade pretty handily.
Well, remember though, he's a restricted free agent though too.
Yeah, that was my question. Like, are they going to be able to keep him? Do you think? Like, I don't know if it's worth really necessarily investing that much in him when he probably can't start alongside Maxey and McCain. I mean, who knows who's going to be on this team next year? But if Maxey and McCain is the foundation moving forward, can you afford to pay Quentin Grimes 8 digits a year? I don't know.
Well, I think we always expect that the players that play well for us for a minute are going to get bigger contracts than they're actually going to get. I think Yabusele is a good example of that. Everybody's like, is the full mid-level going to be enough? I'm like, you think somebody's going to pay Gershon Yabusele $15 million a year to be a rotation forward? What are you, insane? Yeah. Caleb Martin just got $8 million a year. What are we talking about here? So I don't know what Grimes is going to get. I'm also, I want both guys on the team as of now, McCain and Maxey, but them as the nucleus moving forward doesn't seem to make very much sense to me as a pair in a backcourt, but that's a different question for a different time. There was, before we get to Embiid, there was big news we had from Paul George. Let's listen to Paul announcing the news on
fellas,
this podcast.
It's no secret. This season is up to this point, man. It hasn't been what we envisioned. I know my goal when I first signed with Philadelphia was to bring a championship to these amazing fans here. I still remain positive about that, and that is still the case and where I'm coming from. With that being said, though, I want to let the Podcast P family know that after today's episode with Dwight, I plan to take a break from the pod just to focus on getting my body right, getting mentally right, and, help this squad make a push towards our goal to finish the season out, give ourselves a chance to be in contentions to compete for a championship. I won't front. The desire to get back to shooting in person with my guys as well is the forefront of, this hiatus as well. I look forward to us three being back together and doing this as we once started this. So we'll be back on that note. Be sure to lock in with us because we got some big things in store in our future. In the meantime, y'all be easy. From Podcast P, love and peace.
I want to be clear. This is not the end of the world, right? No part of this. But I can't express how annoying it is when a player makes you feel even dumber than you felt before for defending them. We've had our ups and downs with Joel in that way, but I think ultimately when you get to the heart of it, most of us, at least in our little group of people here, like you, me, Mike, we all, the other Mike, we all sort of know what Embiid's pluses and minuses are at our heart. If you put us on a lie detector, we all love him. We all know he probably didn't try hard enough. We all know he's got kind of loser vibes but we're all accepting of all of it, and all we endorse and we are fans of. Paul George, we got all this stuff from Clippers fans when he came here, just like, well, wait till you see this, and we were like, you're wrong. We don't need him to be what you need him to be, all that. And I still do believe that physically he can be a good basketball player. This shit is so dumb. Like this, I can't even conceive of a person who would say something as dumb as this is.
Well, I'm sort of conflicted about this because on the one hand, I do appreciate that he's trying to do something to project that he still cares. Like that to me is what he's doing here. He is trying to send a signal to the fans, to whoever else is invested in this team currently. I still give a shit about what's going on with this team, and I don't want to lose the way we've been losing. And I think that's a legitimate thing that could be in question about Paul George, because he doesn't exactly have the grinded out sort of vibe about him. He doesn't necessarily feel like he's always giving 110%. He doesn't wear his heart on his sleeve. He's not that kind of guy. So if he doesn't literally tell you, I still care, you could really question whether or not he still does. Now, how important that is, I don't know, but I appreciate him trying on that respect. But he kind of needs to look beyond that in this particular instance to understand that when he is saying, okay, guys, no more distractions, I am going to just put all of my effort into playing basketball for the Philadelphia 76ers. Now you got me. It implies very clearly that he has been distracted for the rest of the season, and He has not been putting all of his efforts into the Philadelphia 76ers. And he does maybe care just as much about this podcast as he does the on-court product on this team. So that's not great. And he maybe should have given that a second thought before he decided that this was going to be the thing that he was going to do to project and to signify that now I am locked in. Might not have been at first for the first 58 games of the season where everything else was going as wrong as things could possibly go wrong. But now for these last 24 that don't even matter, now I am locked in. Thanks a lot, Paul George.
Yet that is the problem. It's that I believe I've not listened to Paul podcast. I've listened to one episode of Podcast P the entire time he's been here. The one after the meeting, like the locker room, come to Jesus meeting. I wanted to hear what he had to say about it. He essentially said nothing. And
of course,
I don't have any problem with him doing a podcast generally, because in my view, and I have some experience with this, you can do a podcast and still have plenty of time to do your regular job. Now, do I think it's the best thing for an NBA player during the season to do a podcast where he's going to have to comment on things that he doesn't want to, or it sounds ridiculous if he doesn't? I don't think it's a smart idea, but I also don't think it didn't bother me when they would say, well, he's done this many podcasts, he's only made this many baskets. I'm more worried that he's only made this many baskets, not that he's done more podcasts, right? But your point is correct. Him saying, well, now I really got to take time to focus on my body and the team does bring into question. And even at the end of it, he said, I'm not going to lie, the other priority is getting to do the podcast in person with my guys. And I'm like, no. The correct way to do this, believe it or not, by the way, is not with first of all, it's just to stop doing it. Nobody's going to care. Zero people. Nobody's going to care. Just stop doing it.
Or do it in the off season only.
Yes. Just stop doing it. No, just stop for now. Just don't put out another episode. We have 6 weeks left of the season? Who cares? Yeah. So just stop doing it. The second best way is to just put out a tweet and say, hey, season's not going great. I acknowledge it. I'm not going to do the podcast for the rest of the season. Doesn't seem like it's the right thing to do. But needing to get the video views and also needing to say that the other important thing here is him doing it in person with his guys. Also on he's definitely going to get shut down in the next week or so too, which maybe, by the way, is another reason he's stopping doing it, so he doesn't have to talk about that publicly. I don't know. It's just one of the worst things the Sixers ever done is that video.
I don't know. That's a long list. I don't know if he gets into the top 20 for that one.
It sounds like an article. AU actually. AU. The Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast brought to you by LL Pavorsky Jewelers, the first sponsor of the Ricky. If you're getting engaged, LL. We got this email from Skylar from Malvern, longtime listener, first time writer. Had to write in and tell you about my experience with LL. When my girlfriend and I started shopping for rings, I told her that I really wanted to go to a specific jeweler I knew. From where, she asked. When I told her it was from the podcast I'm always listening to, she was understandably skeptical. I promised her we would visit other jewelers first, and so we did. After visiting a few stores, we had mostly positive experiences, but we couldn't find a ring that she loved. Finally, it was time for me, as a longtime Ricky listener, to complete my pilgrimage to the one and only LL Pavorsky at 707 Walnut. When we came in, we sat and we watched him finish an appointment with another Ricky listener who were getting the ring shipped to Seattle. My girlfriend still had a skeptical look on her face. Clearly, we were here for me and not her. But that changed once our appointment started. Lee was terrific to work with. He had the water on the ready, and he made us feel very comfortable. My girlfriend wanted something unique that none of the other girls would have. She didn't like any of the diamond rings that Lee showed us, but he assured us not to fret. As he put it, rings are like ice cream. He has tons of flavors to choose from, but no jeweler has every flavor, so it's okay if you like a flavor he doesn't have. My dream of buying from LL seemed dashed until LL showed us his color stones. When he showed us his sunset collection, my girlfriend became enamored with an orange sapphire ring. It was the first time I had seen her obsess over a ring. Needless to say, my girlfriend had found her flavor of choice. So let this serve as an exhortation. I don't even know that word. To all the partners who are secondhand listening to the Ricky right now, give Lee a chance.
Exoneration, I think, is what we're going for there.
He spelled it EXHORTATION. Is that a word?
Exhortation.
What does that mean?
Yeah. Like to say something like a proclamation.
Okay. He says it's really good. So That's all you got to know, man. That's all you got to know. LL is the guy you go to when you need an engagement ring. It's by appointment only, if you could tell by Skylar's email. So email him, lee@llpavorsky.com. Call him, 215-627-2252. You can tweet him as well, at LL Pavorsky. The store, as mentioned in that email, is at 707 Walnut. LL, supporters of every charitable effort we've ever had, but currently Providence Animal Center and Mama T's Community Fridge. LL Pavorsky Jewelers.
If you want to be like the Philadelphia 76ers and lose one of your fingers, just make sure it's not your ring finger.
That's a good one. By the way, MOC made an interesting observation earlier this week. Drew Holiday has the same thing that Paul George has, mallet finger, which was successfully identified.
Do 12 guys get this in the NBA every season? We just never heard about it until now?
Yeah, so it seems like it is an injury that can happen playing basketball because of what it is and how, the fact that they're using their fingers all the time and the rim, blah, blah, blah. But the interesting thing that he noted is that we had to identify the injury by a Ricky listener emailing us, who's a hand doctor. The Boston Celtics said, Drew Holiday has a mallet finger. He has to decide whether he's going to play with a splint or give it the time off, is just sort of an interesting little note. A quick update, the Sixers remain, I am convinced the Sixers could lose every game for the rest of the year and remain 2 in the loss column behind the Bulls for the 10 seed. That is the precarious position we are in that the Sixers are 1-9 in their last 10 and are still 2 games in the loss column behind the Bulls for the 10 seed. However, they are now 7th in the tanking rankings. As we were chasing 5th, they're now 7th. So just Brooklyn is now a half game ahead of them. The what's it called? The Raptors are 3.5 games ahead of them for that 5th spot. The 4th spot, the top 4 is pretty much locked in as Washington, Charlotte, Utah, and New Orleans. So here's the difference that this sort of makes. The 5th spot gives you a 64% chance of keeping the pick. The 6th spot gives you a 45% chance of keeping the pick. And the 7th spot gives you a 31% chance of keeping the pick. Interestingly, the number 1 overall pick, the odds do not change as drastically. The 5th pick will give you a 10% chance of getting it, or the 5th spot. The 6th spot will give you a 9% chance. And then the 7th spot gives you a 7.5% chance. So there you go. It's important they get 5th or 6th, man. It really is.
Isn't it wild that even the 6th slot still means less than half of a chance of getting this pick?
Well, this is what happened when they changed all those odds. It gives better odds to the people lower, but it gives worse odds to the people up top. I mean, like the Wizards, first of all, the top 3 teams have the same odds of getting the number 1 overall pick, and it's only 14%. So it's, I guess on some level it's good because it gives you, if you're lower, you have a better chance of getting a good pick, though you have a worse chance of getting it. It's pretty. The other thing that we're noticing here is how precise the 6th spot is. You're not usually looking at
precarious. Yeah. I mean, the thing I think to take away from this in general is that there is nowhere that's safe right now for the Sixers. Right. Like they could get to 5 and still have basically a 1 or 2 chance of losing that pick. So it's not like, I mean, this is sort of hypocritical for me to say under any circumstances, but this maybe shouldn't be a life or death thing for Sixers fans to root for getting that 5th slot rather than the 6th slot. Like, it changes your odds a little bit, but you're still like not safe in the slightest. And even in the 7th, like, it's bad, but it's not the end of the world. We're really talking about like the difference of like a 1 in 5 chance between the 7th and the 5th, and that's important, but it's not going to make or break this thing. At least.
Well, I think you're misinterpreting the odds a little bit. If they're 7th, well, no, hold on. If they're 5th, they're twice as likely to get the pick as if they are 7th.
What was the percentage for 7th?
31.9.
And what was it for 5th?
64.
Yeah, okay. I guess I did the math wrong there, but it's still like not not guaranteed in either event.
Oh, stop! Not guaranteed. Of course.
All right, but my point is, if you want to tune out the season, it's okay to tune out the season. You don't have to watch just for the tanking part of it. Like that's going to happen or it's not going to happen. But there's no place we can get to where we get to throw a parade because we're safe in the lottery suddenly, or we get to fucking have a suicide pact because we're not going to get it. Like it's going to be close to a coin flip no matter what happens.
Or you could just say, like Chuck Klosterman says, that everything has a 50% chance of happening.
This is one of my favorite theories of his. I do like this one a lot.
It either will happen or it won't happen. And when it comes down to it, that is the world that we're living in. It's either yes or no. So I do like that little theory. I bring it up every once in a while. It makes me feel a little better. No, by the way, you talk to a person who is not familiar with Chuck and you say, well, everything's really got a 50% chance of happening. They don't like that. They don't like it at all. But,
no, probably not.
So on to Embiid. The Sixers announced this week they are shutting down Joel Embiid for the season. Not a surprise. And I won't do this again. None of this should be a surprise if you listen to the podcast. None of it. The conflicts going on about what is or isn't wrong, the surgeries he could get, none of it if you're listening to the podcast. So here's their statement. The Philadelphia 76ers and Joel Embiid have been consulting with top specialists regarding ongoing issues with his left knee. After further evaluation, it has been determined that he is medically unable to play and will miss the remainder of the season to focus on treatment and rehabilitation. We're working with medical experts to determine the exact treatment plan and will update media when we have more information. The team and specialists will continue working with Joel to ensure the best path forward for his long-term health and performance. And then we had, and let me play this before we talk about it, this from Shams on ESPN yesterday on Joel Embiid.
You broke the news yesterday, Shams, that Embiid has been ruled out for the rest of the regular season. How ultimately was this decision made?
Malika, this all came to a head over the last couple of weeks, specifically when I'm told Joel Embiid went directly to 76ers owner Josh Harris about the state of his knee and about where the realization he's at with what's in the best interest of him, the organization, as far as a potential shutdown. Because remember, Josh Harris owes Joel Embiid up to $300 million over the next 5 seasons. So the backdrop to all this is that over the last month, we've seen fundamental differences between Joel Embiid and the 76ers as far as Embiid believing that he needs a different treatment approach for this versus the 76ers feeling you play on it, get in better condition, and you could continue on this year. This has been a situation the 76ers have been dealing with all season, and they've managed the swelling in multiple different ways, including injections monthly, just to get him on the court. But here they are in lockstep. This is all about getting Joel Embiid back on the court in the best sustainable way, and they are in lockstep about that.
Wow.
Okay, so, and then the other thing is Lisa Salter said maybe almost passively and casually that the meniscus repair and a meniscus replacement are both on the table. It's hard to know when the sideline reporter is being sort of casual and, oh, by the way, and when they're reporting something, you know, I don't think she was reporting anything there. I think she was just saying something. I think, like, on some level, this whole idea that Joel Embiid marched into Josh Harris's office and said, my knee hurts and nobody will do anything about it, please save me, is a little outrageous. And you would have to assume just insane amounts of neglect and malpractice by everyone working for the organization to think that they're not listening to any doctors, they're not doing anything, they haven't, their entire careers are based on this decision, and they're just going like, damn, let's see if it works. And it takes Joel marching into the owner's office and going, my knee hurts, and him going, no way, like, what's going on here? We should do something about it. I say that to say that, like, there are a lot of factors, I think, going into the current reporting of this. I think there is the Embiid camp factor, which I've likened to what I believe to be, I'm not saying it's the same, but I had mentioned the Fultz stuff before, where the camp around the player wants to believe one thing and the team believes another thing. And, you can choose whatever you want as to what you believe in that or what you think the reality is. I I happen to think that the people leading the team are smart and want all the information they can. So I find it hard to believe that they didn't consult a lot of, and every piece of reporting up to this point has been that, and everybody wants to say the Sixers medical team. This is a lot bigger than like the Sixers medical team. It's like doctors outside of the universe. Obviously the player can go to every doctor that they want to go to. And the team in a situation like this will go to several opinions around them, right? So I think part of it is that voice. Part of it that we're hearing is team voice. Part of it that we're hearing is obviously, you heard Stephen A. Smith talking this week about Magic Johnson, and part of it is Magic Johnson, and I'm sure Bob Myers wanting a piece of, wanting a piece of this action because they smell blood, and so I continue to say and believe that if there were a surgery that they believed that there was likely to fix Joel Embiid's knee condition, he would have had it. Or even to that end, today on March 2nd, we would have heard what that surgery is that he is going to get. But we continue to hear from everyone about a bunch of different surgeries that have a low probability of success. So I continue, and maybe at my fault, and maybe I'll be proven wrong, but if there was just a simple surgery they all thought he could have, or some doctor thought he could have, he would be scheduled for it. And we would have heard that report, not, meniscus replacement surgery, which in the history of the NBA, we know of one guy who missed 2 years, who's half the size of Embiid and is nowhere near the player he was prior to the surgery. So that's just sort of my thought. And I think the whole thing is incredibly sad. And I think it's probably more likely that much more likely that we will never see him at the level that we remember. Also, maybe more likely than not that we never see him play like 8 games in a row ever again, So that's sort of my thought on all of it.
Yeah, the only thing we're missing at this point is like the relative of Joel's that needs to start demanding accountability on his behalf. Like he needs like that. Was it Uncle Dennis was Kawhi's person, or Markelle Fultz's mother, to just kind of storm into the office and start demanding changes. Maybe that has to be Arthur. Maybe Arthur's got to go in there and be like, "My daddy needs surgery. Why aren't you getting him surgery?"
Right.
Maybe that needs to be the move there.
Yeah.
This whole thing just kind of reminds me, like the entire Friday experience of the news coming out of him being shut down, just kind of reminds me like what a piece of shit I've become at this point in my Sixers fandom, because I was just getting mad at everybody. Like I was getting mad at my friends because they were doing the, oh, well, he'll get the surgery, the rest will be better next season, and the Sixers won't be this bad again. I'm like, no, this is the end. Like the process is over. That's what this means. Right. And it's meant this for like months already, or at least weeks. And then some of the national guys were like, well, why didn't they shut him down earlier? And it's like, okay, the reason they didn't shut him down is because they didn't want to admit that it's over for him this season and probably next season and probably forever. And other guys, there was one guy who was like, well, I don't know if you know this about the Philadelphia 76ers, but their pick is top 6 protected this year. And if it doesn't pay in the top 6, then they have to send it to OKC. And I was just getting mad at him for like acting like this was like a fun fact he had uncovered and that we weren't having like a civil war existential crisis over this in the fan base for months already. And then I was angrily messaging Jason about all of this, but I was being so sarcastic about everything that he couldn't even understand what I was saying. And then I was getting mad at him for not understanding my sarcasm. Tough stuff all around. And just like, I'm glad at least that now it is officially over. And
for this year.
I don't want to for this year. Yeah. And we can move on sort of. Move on is probably not the right phrase for it, because we're never moving on from any of this ever. But at least this, we can kind of like, it's like a bloodletting of the discourse. Like get it all out now. And then we won't have to listen to it a week or two from now, hopefully, until the next terrible thing goes wrong.
Yeah, I actually have a point about that in a moment. Body Bio. Love Body Bio. Body Bio has sponsored the Ricky for, we had like 3 years, I think, maybe at least 3 years. Body Bio has been a Ricky partner. Body Bio, family owned and operated supplement company in Jersey. Love Jersey, big Jersey guy now. And the product that they have been most known for is PC. Now, we've talked about Elite and liposomal C and butyrate, but PC, psilocybin complex, is what they're known for. So in your daily life, whether you try to do anything about it or not, there's a lot of toxins in the environment that you can't control, right? Like there's mold, maybe even in your home, microplastics, pesticides. Mike was dealing with wildfire smoke. You can't, as much as you try, you can't avoid them completely, and they affect your cells, the health of your cells. And your cells are the things that decide what to let in, the good stuff like nutrients, things like that, and the bad stuff like the toxins I was talking about. When you get older or you get sick, they have a hard time doing it. So what PC does, which is phospholipid complex. Phospholipid complex. There we go. What phospholipid complex does is it keeps your cells strong and healthy. As you get older, or maybe you're tired or you're not in the best shape, and your cells become more likely to let those toxins in, phospholipid complex helps. So they protect you from those things. So that is what this does. It is good for you no matter what situation you're in, whether you're in a situation that's bad. Maybe you work in a city where the air quality is not great, Los Angeles or New York or even Philly, or even if you're out in the middle of the country, there are still toxins that your body has to fight off. So go to bodybio.com, use code Norman for 20% off PC, or 20% off any order you want at any time, fish oil plus, whatever you want. Again, bodybio.com, code Norman for 20% off. I do agree with you at bodybio.com. I do agree with you about the sort of bloodletting and then over, because I do think that one thing that I would like less of is just sort of the contentious dialogue about him. Because,
the sort of graphics that are like, this is how many games he's missed versus this is how many games he's played versus how many injury setbacks he's had, that sort of thing. Right.
Or whether he's tough enough, or whether he's whether he tries hard enough, or any of the things that come along with injury. And I've been doing this, we've all been doing this long enough to know that, a large portion of his time missed due to injury is not within his control. But we also know that some of it is, and how he took care of himself. We're all aware of those things. But when this news hit the other day, I was on the air with the afternoon show with Ike and Jack, and we heard the breaking news thing, and Jack said, Joel Embiid being shut down for the season. And my first reaction was, well, I already told you guys, we knew that was going to happen. It's not news. Yeah. But then it gave us, Ike is a good meter for this, because he is a big Embiid guy, but he's not like us, right? So he's a good barometer of where. And he immediately shifted to sympathy, but also remembering how good he was. And with time, I think we as a fan base will remember it. And you still get the people going, well, he didn't, yes, he choked in the Boston series. Yes, he choked in the Miami series. We get it. We understand. But also for a period of 5 years, he was debatably the best player in the NBA. He was runner-up for 2 consecutive MVPs, won an MVP, and probably would have won the MVP last year if Kuminga doesn't fall on his knee. He was averaging 36 and 12 last year. He scored 50 in the playoffs. In the playoffs on one leg, he was averaging 33, 10, and 6 or something. So in a series that you look back on, it didn't feel like a great Embiid series, but
nope.
So the thing that I think it did for me was it quieted the stuff and put me in a position, I'm just speaking selfishly, to just be like, okay, maybe this is definitely over for the year. I don't have to worry about it then. It might be over, and at least start to deal with it in a normal way and not in a combative what should they do way. And I think that part was good.
Yeah, I think it's also probably better for the guys in the court, to just have this no longer be a discussion.
Yeah.
And this is sort of what the way they played last night, and to a certain extent the Knicks game, is what I was expecting when I predicted they were going to beat the Bulls easily rather than losing by 50, which is what actually happened. I just thought they would kind of be playing a little freer and easier without Joel as a consideration. And maybe they needed he's out, don't even ask about him anymore announcement to really sort of start to feel that it was over.
Yeah. But
it seems almost certain that it's a good thing for the team. That it's just, were you surprised that he was actually there last night? Do you think he's going to keep going to the games?
So the thing to remember is he wants to play basketball, and I think for him, I think he's probably relieved that when he goes to the game now, there's no questions about, I'm sure there's questions, but there's not a question about whether he's going to play that night or whether he's going to play that week. I think there's probably a freeing part of it for him. Now, interestingly, I would agree in theory about the team sort of loosening up after that announcement. The two players you would expect to loosen up actually did not play well last night.
Well, it's hard to loosen up when your fingers are literally tied together.
Right.
That is discouraging towards looseness, I would say.
Yeah. So I think all of that is a positive negative if that. So then looking forward, here are the sort of options that we may see. So option one is a less invasive treatment that has him, recovered from the treatment, whether it is a surgical procedure, maybe it's the radiation thing they're talking about, where they try to ramp him up and he tries to ramp up for the beginning of next season. Oh, by the way, we mentioned the Magic Johnson stuff. Or the Stephen A stuff. Stephen A said in that clip that there are rumors that Josh Harris didn't want to do the extension and Morey talked him into it. There are literally no rumors about that. The rumors that float around currently, and I do not even get this from a Sixers source, but I would say from people that I am that have faith in, is that Harris did not want controversy this summer and did not want to appear cheap because he was trying to get the arena. And the best thing for an arena is not to have the star yelling that he's not getting paid. And by the way, they don't get Paul George if they don't extend him. I had heard the other way. So nobody's saying that. The other thing about Bob Myers is I don't think there's any chance that Daryl Morey gets fired this offseason. Zero, zilch. Now, I don't think it's impossible that Bob Myers could weasel his way into some sort of advisory role.
The Colangelo, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know how Morey feels about that or anything. I'm sure he'd be irritated by it, but I think he'd probably handle it better than Hinkie did. But he may start looking. But I think there's 0% chance that Daryl Morey gets fired this offseason. I don't think it's likely. Okay, so he has a less invasive procedure theoretically available for next year. They try it that way. They have a more invasive procedure, whether this is meniscus replacement, which is, from my understanding, not a true option. And if it is an option, there's very little confidence that it would be successful. Meniscus repair, which doesn't seem to make any sense, what Lisa Salter said. But then there's also the hip thing. So this is a situation that is more invasive and leads him to basically be counted out for next year at all. So I think he's going to try to get back for next season, and I don't find a. But the good part of that is it may get us resolution quicker than the other thing does, because the other thing, he tries to come back, the next year or whatever. Then it's still hanging over our heads. If he comes back and fails, I think whatever they do here is the last real thing that gets tried. So hopefully we know in the next few weeks what he's thinking about.
I obviously have no expertise to offer here in terms of what they should do, what they shouldn't do. My only hope is that if they come down to a scenario, and they very well might not, but if they do, they come down to a scenario where they say, okay, this option A has a 40% chance of working and he'll be ready for the next season, or option B has a 60 to 65% chance of working and he has to miss all of next season. I hope they take option B. I hope that what next season does not seriously enter into their calculations when it comes, and I say there, I guess it's just as much Joel as it is the teams. I hope that they take the long view, and it's probably not going to work regardless, but I hope that they don't think, oh, if we just do this, he'll be back for next season and it'll be right as rain. That's not going to happen. And I think it would be a healthy way to look at next season as if it is already a sunk cost, and just hope that there's a way that he can come back 2 seasons from now. Well, and if he comes back next season, then great, but I just don't want that to be the priority. And
to be clear, this is his choice. He has agency in this. Yeah. Everyone wants to make it seem like he has controlled a lot of the conversation and, injury stuff on him. And the reason he decided to try to play this year is not to tough it out, but is because doctors believed this was the best path forward for him to do it. So, but this is his choice. Like, he can't, at this point, he's shutting himself down to an extent. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing, and people have brought this up, and I saw someone had mentioned the idea of the medical retirement and how that works. So just so everyone is clear, and we've talked about it, that if the player, you can get medical retirement for a player if that player has not played basketball in a calendar year. So the team sends an application to the league for medical retirement, and they have doctors check out the player and see if they agree that the player cannot play based on that player's injuries. If that gets approved, that medical retirement, then the player's salary comes off the books and you get cap relief for that. But the player gets the entire salary. So that happened with Chris Bosh. So Joel Embiid would be paid out his entire salary, and the Sixers would be relieved of the cap hit for that. Also, the player could come back at some point if they wanted to, but the player is waived in that scenario, so the player becomes a free agent. The player does not have to agree in this scenario. This is not something that the player applies for. It's something that the team applies for within the league in the NBPA. But
I don't think Chris Bosh agreed to it, did he?
I don't know, but I also do know that the player being willing is a big help, because if the player is saying, no, I want to try this therapy to come back, so on and so forth. But the fact that the player gets paid out their entire salary should mitigate some of that issue. But we're a while from that, so I wouldn't worry about it too much.
Yeah, I've got nothing to add to that. I hope that is not how this ends. That would be very sad. And I think it's going to be sad regardless, but I would like the words medical retirement to not be ones I have to hear very often over the next couple seasons.
Well, I'd rather he medically retire than John Wallet, to be honest with you. I don't want to see him for 8 games every year.
Yeah, it'd be nice. You don't have to see your old friends like all the time. So you have friends that like you only check in with every now and then. It's like, oh, good catching up. Like, we'll see you in another year. Like, that's okay.
I do think a medical retirement would allow the it does allow the healing stage to begin earlier.
I guess.
Not his body.
If that's what we're looking forward to, is starting the clock on being able to talk more positively about Joel Embiid after his playing days are already done.
Well,
I don't know if that's necessarily something I want to set my sights on as being like the main thing I have to look forward to with the Sixers team the next couple of years.
Well, if you hope for the best, expect the worst.
Yeah, well, that is the creed these days. That is the credo.
Yeah, we had a bad Joel email. I don't want to read it. Here's one from Will from Harrisburg, Rights to Ricky Sanchez @gmail.com. People are wrong about Embiid playing in the Olympics and missing the point. Embiid hitting those 3 shots in a row with around 5 minutes left, closing the gap from 7-2 against Serbia, was the biggest high leverage accomplishment of his career, and it's not even remotely close. On top of the fact that he was on one leg and would have caught shit for the rest of the time if he missed those and lost the game. Anyone who still thinks he shouldn't have played are simply not Embiid guys. I am glad he played in the Olympics, didn't matter anyway, sort of place. Are you the same?
Especially because we got that clip. I don't know if you remember this, but this is my favorite part of Joel's Olympics run. That clip of him after the semifinals game, just kind of crotch chop dancing down the court, and Anthony Edwards is watching him on the sideline, and he's like cheering him on, and then he's kind of crotch chopping along with him. I was like, this might be our last truly great Joel Embiid memory, and I'm glad we got it. And if we weren't going to get any this year, I'm glad we got at least one over the summer.
And against Jokic, it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
They don't win it. They don't win it without him. They don't win the gold medal without him in that game. So,
and everyone sort of agrees on that. That's not like a Sixers fan take.
No,
That's
no,
a consensus opinion.
No. Yeah, I agree. All right, we will. When are we back? Thursday night, I think.
Something like that.
Yeah,
Wednesday or Thursday. Something like that.
It's not Wednesday because I'm in Clearwater Wednesday. So I think it's. I'm going down.
Nice.
Catch a little Phil's baseball for work, Got Gonna interview
How
Bryce.
has the preseason been going? I've been very tuned out.
Spring training, we call it. We don't call it.
I'm sorry, spring training. That's right.
Jesus Luzardo has looked really good, throwing a lot of strikes. He's been injury, but if he's good, seems like he is a top of the rotation guy. Kyle Schwarber playing first base for some reason. At least Bryce ended up hitting second the other day. Vibes seem fine. I'll let you know after
I did see some tweet that was like the combined stats of their pitching rotation in the spring training, and it was like 16 innings, 3 hits, 0 runs, 16 strikeouts, 2 walks, something like that. Some absolutely overwhelmingly positive stat line. It's like, okay, sure, let's just project that out over 162 games. That sounds like a pretty fun season. I'm down with that.
Yeah, I think so. It's going to take, as long as they can get off to a reasonable start, we can wash away how last year ended, because it ended so poorly. Like so poorly, having been at all those games and having been fucking at Citi Field when that Grand Slam happened, I need that washed away from my soul.
I think it's probably over with the Phillies too, to be honest. Like I don't need to necessarily be a downer on an already very downer podcast, but like the way that the trajectory of the last few years doesn't seem like the kind that you just automatically bounce back from. It seems more likely that it continues on like it did with the WFC Phillies 15 years ago, but who knows? Maybe not.
Yeah,
at least we don't know for a fact that it's over yet.
They have a better farm system than that run did, and I think they're looking for a good team to bridge the gap between this core and whatever the next core is, and I think that always goes super well.
Sure.
Well, I mean, this is the last year of his contract. Schwarber's the last year of his contract. Castellanos, 2 more years, I think. So they'll have some flexibility after this year. Unless I will, if they give Real Muto an extension, I will have a completely separate view on this. But as of now, I'm reasonably optimistic. Not super optimistic.
Yeah, let's go with that. Reasonably optimistic is a fucking parade on Broad Street as far as I'm concerned. So let's go with that.
All right, we'll talk to you next time. You down with TTP?
Yeah, look, face.